Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are doing the 2018 end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup. We'll be looking at games starting with the letter N today, so I'm going to scroll through this as I explain the situation. So basically what has gone on is for the past year, while streaming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I've been looking at every single game that has come out for Steam. If it met a minimum level of quality, which certainly a lot of games that come out don't, I was putting it on my wish list, thinking about it, thinking to myself, well, if this game has a certain number of reviews, reaches what it really is a threshold of about 25 reviews, then it probably is worth looking at and probably playing and covering. That turned out to cause a very big mess, and I have since realized that I should have been putting all of those new games in a follow list, which you can also have on Steam instead. And so now we're making adjustments. We're also looking at older games and seeing if they really do still have reasons to be played, that we'll get into more. As you can see, oddly, I wouldn't have guessed this. There aren't a lot of games starting with the letter N to compared to some of the other letters in the that we've done up until this point. Now, I'm fairly certain that T will be the one that drives me crazy, and this turns into a 6 or 7 hour stream, but this is going to be pretty quick. So we'll use this game in ++ as a reference to point out where the red flags are going to be, what we're looking for, what's going to help us make our decisions. Generally speaking though, when you have a game that is 100% positive in the last 30 days or 96% positive over its lifetime, and it's a game that came out well, I guess it doesn't matter when it really comes out. It's more, is it past the 25 review threshold? I wouldn't be surprised if there are some pretty bad games out there that try to manipulate reviews that have like 8 positive reviews and nobody else has seen the game, so of course there are no negative reviews. That's why I try to wait until I see at least 25 reviews, because I suspect at that point people wouldn't be as easily able to find other people to buy the game and review it, which is a requirement to be counted in this number. Is you have to buy the game directly through Steam. You can't activate it through a key or be given the game some other way. So we're going to keep an eye out for red flags as far as the reviews. If we get desperate and the game is on the edge, we might look at the developer or the publisher's list and to see if the game is in good company, like the developer has developed other good games or the publisher has published other good games. A lot of times it turns out to be the exact opposite and the game is in bad company, which might also affect our decision. Also, I'm every now and then looking at developers to see, heck, is this developer made any other games that maybe I should consider playing. Now, I have basically every single plugin available on Chrome for Steam. So this, I believe, is the Is There Any Deal plugin, which will tell you a historically low price and the current lowest price on Steam. So right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of things discounted, because it's right in the middle of a 3-day Halloween sale that Steam is doing. But clearly this game isn't on sale. So we won't be spending too much on the price. But to be fair, in ++, if it didn't have such an overwhelmingly high number of reviews and high number of positive reviews, I would say this looks very much like a medium effort game at best and not worth $15. But I am totally willing to bow to the masses and and say there must be more to this game than just a somewhat lackluster visuals. Now, it also might be a super difficult platformer game, which is not my favorite type of game to play either. So maybe I'd buy N++ and not get very fast. It says it's a fast-paced, movement-based platformer about darting around obstacles, narrowly avoiding enemies, and collecting gold in a beautiful, minimalistic landscape. Most of the time when games sell themselves on minimalistic, that really isn't immense that they can't animate things, or they're just bad at animating. But again, this one's really not in question. I have a plugin that shows reviews. I'm not sure if this is the OpenCritic plugin that adds the reviews here, but it certainly does seem like there's something that adds Metacritic and OpenCritic reviews and awards over here. Occasionally we'll look at Metacritic, but I try not to make my decision based on mainstream video game reviewers' reviews, which OpenCritic and Metacritic are aggregating those type of reviews. Generally, I'm more and more learning that my opinions aren't 100% in line with those type of players' opinions. We'll want to make sure that every game has a good single player component, because if I try to review or criticize a multiplayer game, well, my experience in one multiplayer session might be very different than other people's experience, and I'm so focused on the story in particular. I wouldn't really have the skill base to criticize multiplayer games as much as a lot of other people would be able to. We'll want to keep a small idea for some red flags in the languages. If we find a game that is English and Russian only, or English and simplified Chinese, or traditional Chinese only, those games have a slightly higher chance of being troll games, which is what Steam calls them. I like to call them very low effort games, because I feel like the phrase trolls is not broad enough to define a lot of the bad games on Steam. Moving on, we have a how long to beat plugin, which can be very helpful. It'll tell you if it has data, how many hours or minutes it takes to beat the main storyline with extras, or play as a completionist and do everything. If we find games that are, say, 30 minutes to beat but $15 to purchase, that's certainly out of line for being a reasonable amount of money. Then we have the Steam Charts plugin, which gives you probably a somewhat inaccurate calculation of like how many people are playing now, what today's peak is, what the all-time peak is. You would take the idea that the highest number of people who have ever played N++ is 511 as maybe some bad information because of the fact that it has multiplayer, but I guess it's just local multiplayer, so that might explain that. But this number generally does not get very high anyways. It's actually been quite surprising as I've been looking at it. And then we have Steam Spy, which tells you the average playtime. Generally you'll find the average playtime to be somewhere between a third to a quarter of the amount of time it takes to beat a game. So 4 hours and 30 minutes could easily be 16 hours to 20 hours of gameplay to actually finish the game. Average playtime is just everybody who launched the game for 1 minute and then never played it again, plus everybody who has left the game running for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So it can be a little bit off, but it tends to average out if there are enough players. And then you can look at the average playtime in the last 2 weeks to see if the game might have any relevancy still. Like if you see Then last 2 weeks, the average playtime is 0 hours and 0 minutes. That means it's a pretty old game. Maybe not bad game, just old. We won't be using the performance survey plugin really. Then Steam's own built-in recommendations are pretty bad. Every now and then I might want to scroll through some of these, but the games that get recommended are not very similar. I don't think Geometry Dash, for example, is very similar to Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2. I didn't even know that was an episodic game, actually. And then you might see me open quite a few of these. And then if this game was still in question after looking at all of that stuff, we would come down and look at the reviews. Generally speaking, I would put 10 positive reviews are worth 1 negative review. And I'm really only looking for negative reviews that I can skim. So something that's of a good length and, well, at least not more than 1 sentence is what I'm looking for. I don't want something that goes on for paragraph after paragraph, but I also don't want something super short. So reading this negative review says, after playing Super Meat Boy, The End is Nigh, and 1001 Spikes, 3 games that I probably could not beat the first level on. In fact, I tried to play Super Meat Boy just recently and couldn't beat the first boss on. And other fast-paced platformers, I couldn't get into this one. I understand the visuals are meant to be bare bones, but that's also one of the reasons why this game doesn't immerse me. The amount of levels is astounding, but it's pretty obvious that it's taking into consideration how easy it's to create more. And once again, it's too bad that they don't differ visually. The main play is the gameplay, though, as I simply can't get over how floaty the character feels, which is a big no-no for me in any game I play. In N++, the gameplay mechanics are the most important part of the game, and thus I can't recommend it. Many have found pleasure in its speedy racing-like levels, and if you're in search of something like this, the titles in the first sentence, you might want to skip this one. So in a weird way, that last sentence tells me I should keep N++ in my wish list, because those 3 games are not the kind of games I'm trying to play. That being said, there is still a very high chance that this game would actually not be for me. There is certainly this divide. Let's look at this developer and see if he's made any other games. There is definitely a divide, no he hasn't, between old school Super Mario Brothers style platforming games, which feel like they were easier and more doable. Maybe that's not actually true. Maybe Super Meat Boy and Super Mario Brothers are pretty close to each other in the level of difficulty. I doubt it, but that might be that I just have nostalgia goggles on it. But what I'm thinking is that you have a demand more on speed, where Super Mario Brothers had 999 seconds to beat the level. I believe the first game did, so you just had that one timer as an element trying to push you forward for most of the levels, whereas Super Meat Boy is designed to make you feel like you have to constantly move. Yeah. I really think I'm gonna have to just make an executive decision here and remove N++. Like, even though it is very, very positive, I really don't think it's the game for me. Looking at all of the action as we're watching the gameplay video, it's just like, no, this would turn into a very frustrating rage quit situation. And I am very visually focused, so I know for a fact that if a game looks bad, I don't want to play it. In fact, all that flashing could be seizure inducing. So yeah, I know I said I was going to keep it, but this is the time to look and actually think about the games. So I'm actually going to remove it. So what I'm doing is I'm copying the name and I'm putting it in a notepad column that I have over on my second monitor on the right. There are 4 columns. One is remove, one is put it at the top of the wish list, one is put it to the follow list, and thus remove it from the current wish list. There's also an ignore column. We really have only used that once for a very specific reason, and it's not 100% likely that we will use it again for the rest of this Steam wishlist cleanup. So now we can start moving a little bit faster. I'm gonna add this and see if we can add 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that. Got called away on a short errand. So, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which from what I hear, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is very good. I'm surprised it's episodic though. That was not anything that would have even crossed my mind. So, I guess, yeah, I'll just have to do some extra research and make sure that I have these on my wish list. That's for S's though, so don't really have to do anything else about this. Just make sure that it's rated well. And Sonic the Hedgehog has such a cultural reference in the video game world that it makes sense to own the Sonic the Hedgehog series, as much of that you can get on PC and play it on PC and see how it actually plays there. Next we have a game called Nascence, which, since this is not a super long list of games, we can really go into a bit longer of a deep dive and make sure each one of these games is actually worth playing. Nascence is an obscure, magical first-person exploration game, a philosophical trip, and an artistic experience. The adventure takes place in a primitive, mysterious structure, and the game mainly consists to explore and feel the deep and strong ambience of the atemporal world. So, atemporal meaning not consistent in time. Now, while that is a fancy description, there's also very possibly a fancy description for what could be a less than super polished game. While this developer clearly can do 3D polygons and lighting effects and shadows and such, and they're adding gameplay mechanics even around that, there's definitely not a lot of texture going on here, although there's a little bit there. So yeah, this is an interesting idea of a shadow and light manipulator, sort of like Portal in its feel, but not like Portal in actually its mechanics at all, which I think is kind of one of the things about a lot of the Portal clone games that are on Steam, is a lot of them do try to do the exact same mechanics while not really understanding the story or the feeling behind it. This looks actually really good. I don't know this developer. This game is free to play. Let's see. I initially planned to make it free after some years, and now is the time. And see, this came out when? 2014. So people bought it for a long time and it's now just free. Generally speaking, I don't cover free games because they're free, but I think this one might be an exception to that rule. This is 3 to 4 hours of a commitment. It's rated 66 on Metacritic, which is good enough for me because I'm already kind of sold on the game, and I don't really need to go digging to see. It's like I really don't need to see the flaws here, because geez, how can you really be too upset with a game that's free? Now the question would be, has this developer made anything else? Because generally speaking, after about 4 years, if a developer hasn't announced another game, if they haven't done anything, you can see in this instance there's a September 9th update that happened this year, so he's updated it somewhat recently. But if this was, say, September 9th, 2014, that would have been 4 years difference. But yeah, he hasn't made anything else, which is the same shame. And I don't know why you would make your game free on Steam, honestly, if you hadn't another game to announce. It would make a lot more sense to say, in the past 4 years, I've been secretly working on a sequel, Nascence 2, or I've been working on some other game that's completely different, or somewhat different, but still has a lot of similarity. Basically, it doesn't matter what kind of game it is. A game developer should have been working on something else. They should be able, after 4 years, to announce it, make a Steam page and say, okay, now that our old game is very old and we're not going to make any money off of it anymore, let's make that free and use that as an advertisement to sell our new game. If you don't have a new game to sell, why not just leave it on Steam? Leave it on Steam for 49 cents. Get those little pennies coming in. It's almost as if this game stopped making enough money to make it even worth filing taxes on it. Which, at least in the United States, that wouldn't be too hard. You really don't even have to claim money under, I believe, $100, maybe even $1,000. So, like, it really wouldn't be too much to sell a game for 49 cents and let people give you a few pennies. Although maybe it's not worth the frustration of thinking about it. Moving on though, that's staying on the wish list. Now this one is a more difficult choice because it's 75% positive of 20 user reviews. It's a 2017 game. It's not going to get any more reviews probably. So I have to decide, do I want to play this game or not? It's a horror game, although it doesn't really look like it. Now, arguably also it's maybe a bit of an asset flip game too. But there was a reason why I put it here in the wish list. Not 100% sure I remember why. I doubt this developer has made anything else. See, it really does feel like just a total asset flip where we've got a character that he probably bought from an asset store. You've got plants that you probably bought from an asset store. You've got these two adjoining apartments, or one apartment, two-room apartment, and kind of seems like that might be all of it. It's doing some tropes of horror games and flashlights. It's doing the Alan Wake style of you have to put the flashlights on people to hurt them or slow things down as soon as you run to the room. So it feels like it's a game trying to address being alone or feeling alone, or feeling unsafe. Why did I want this game? on the wish list though. I guess you don't see a lot of horror games that involve little girls as the main protagonist. I'm surprised this isn't tagged as female protagonist. Like, you usually have something more along the lines of a Resident Evil hero, military guy, or well, if you do have a female protagonist in the horror game, it's a adult, very capable character. Taking away the capability and having somebody be having a helpless character brings in an interesting idea. Guess this game is getting updated still, and at least somewhat it was. This is an English, French, Russian, Spanish, and simplified Chinese game. Has had an all-time peak of 5 people play it. Let's look at the reviews. Let's see. Survive each night scenario. You're looking at these reviews, and maybe maybe the idea was to put this on the follow list. Maybe that's the deal, because this doesn't feel like it's at the level of quality that should be on the wish list. Suppose Hellblade's Sooner Sacrifice would be a much better version of a similar themed story, or Outlast might be a much longer version of an idea like this. Yeah, let's look at this developer and see if he's made anything else. He has a game called Let's Beats, which is like a music game, and Fallen Bird, which looks like it's a platformer game. So I think easily enough here, although I'm taking way more time actually than I should, that this should be on the follow list. This is a special case of a game that maybe someday would get polished, but I honestly could think of several other games that are similar in this way and do elements a lot better. This feels like it's more of a demo that's getting worked on, and it's weird that a developer would have 3 different games and potentially all 3 of them might not be finished. It seems like Steam Direct has encouraged this developer to try and use Steam as a place to put half-finished products. See, Fallen Bird here looks like a Getting Over It with Benet Foddy clone with an interesting, probably better concept of a bird that seems like it can double jump, and maybe some puzzle solving to get around too. But this doesn't look really that good either. But see, there's 2 has been it's been developed on. So yeah, let's close that. Let's move on to the next thing. So we're gonna run into the Nancy Drew series. If I remember correctly, there's Nancy Drew, Lights, Camera, and Curses that I've covered and I really didn't enjoy. And then Nancy Drew Resorting to Danger, which I believe I own and would be the next game that I cover. Take note that these are $7 each. And then, yeah, I don't think Resorting to Danger is that good either. But then after that point, they get at least an artist in to have a consistent thumbnail for each game in this long Nancy Drew series. and they start to put some more money into it. So, third game in the Nancy Drew trilogy, although maybe not so much a trilogy, takes it from a flat 2D animation style to a more 3D animation style. I think there's a lot, probably more and better puzzles in the Nancy Drew series. For most people, skipping to what I believe would be the first game in the series, in the new way of doing the series, would be Curse of Blackmore Manor. So skipping here and then moving forward would be the way to do this. And so the Nancy Drew games, in case you're wondering, are kind of point and click mystery adventure games. And there's so many in them that honestly I need to just play. Wow, look at that. That is really bad animation. Probably not terrible animation though for 2004. There's just some real poor anatomy as far as the lengths of arms, the size of hands, just how legs are being drawn there. That's pretty bad. But it also kind of isn't unheard of that animators of all sorts can't animate children very well. The man here looks slightly better, but his head is really small. So that they certainly were new to it, and the quality of the animations I imagine won't be great, even if we went to the latest of the one. This is from a developer, Her Interactive, who I believe pretty much only does Nancy Drew games. But it's such a high commitment. $80 for a package of 20 games is a lot, but then Nancy Drew theoretically might have some name recognition. So this one's 2010, this one's 2011, this one's 29. These are not actually in the order of the release dates, so I don't know if they're in alphabetical order. 2011, 2011, 2009, 2009, 2009. So the latest one we've seen is a 2011, so it's not a super recent series either, which might lose some relevancy if it weren't for the fact that Nancy Drew as a book series has some relevancy. It seems like, yeah, there's been a 7-year gap of any Nancy Drew games. And there's really no reason why I would take these out, but this would be an interesting argument if I cover Nancy Drew games every once in a while. I'd say maybe one every 3 months, just to catch up. By the time I had covered so many of those point and click adventure games, I probably could eliminate a lot more of the older and less relevant point and click games otherwise. So there is Treasure of the Royal Tower that came out in 2017. It's just not in that bundle. So there's even more games to potentially add to the list. And nothing's been announced, at least on Steam. But yeah, in fact, you might claim that they basically flood Steam with these kind of games. Inherently though, there's also not a good way to make an argument against this, doing this. Like Nancy Drew and girls that are girl games that are targeted a little bit more to girls, there's not a lot of them on Steam. See, it says this came out in 2001 actually. I would say the graphics look like they are more of a 2001. So maybe they're just porting them to Steam slowly. It doesn't look terrible though. It does go back to the question about why did they ever bother to make any point and click adventure game in 3D? Or more accurately, why after experimenting for 3 or 4 years of making games in 3D did they not realize, well, this is actually a lot more work and it doesn't look as good. Let's go back to the hand-drawn 2D animations, the flat animations we used to use. I guess, though, that's a bigger question in animation in general. Almost everything, even if it looks flat in 2D, as far as a cartoon, is being animated by computers and done by CGI. So that's just the way things went. And eventually I think the computers will get good enough that we'll go back to flat 2D animation styles that are being done by computers. Yeah, it's still a little hard though. It's quite a commitment to want to try and cover all of these games, because I don't want it to get to the point where I have a time slot on my channel that is just Nancy Drew games for like the length of a year. That being said, I've covered like the Assassin's Creed series, and I'm covering about 2 of those a year, and even at that, that's quite a lot. Let's move forward. We really don't have to make any kind of decisions here. This one says it was 2013. Now the graphics look better here. So the release date that is listed seems to usually be somewhat accurate. So no real decision needs to be made here. I just kind of want to put all these games on the wish list. I could be picky and say, well, here's one from 2010 that is mixed reviewed, so let's not play that one, let's only play the good ones. Maybe that's the case, but in all honesty, I've been covering almost like all the Lego games. Like there's only 4 Lego games that I haven't purchased and covered on Steam, so there is room to replace kids games with something like this. That being said, I'm not 100% sure if E for Everyone is the rating for all of the Nancy Drew games. If it is, that would be about as kids games as you're gonna get. Let's see, this 2012 one has 15 reviews, so you can see that there's not a lot of people reviewing these, but kids games I guess also would be less likely to review. One thing that's nice about the Nancy Drew series is it seems like every game is themed around some kind of theme. So we saw a previous one where it was a Japanese ghost. Here we have an Egyptian mummy. So they're playing some old school mystery stereotypes and cliches pretty well. Moving on, we have a game called Nanoi, which really I don't have to think about because it's a 2018 game and I can just have it on the fall list instead. I don't know why this has even made it to the wish list. Let's see. So it's an RPG action game. Let's see how this actually plays in the video. So it's more of a fast-paced slide dash Dark Souls style game. Maybe hack and slashing might be a better way of describing it. Like, that's an interesting question. Do you call a Dark Souls game a Dark Souls game if it's fast-paced and hack and slash? Is a Dark Souls game because you have to be slow and get behind people and backstab them? Or is it a Dark Souls game because it has to be brutally difficult? I bet if you polled the Dark Souls community, half of the people would respond one way and the other would respond the other way. So yeah, looking at this, I see a few interesting elements, but I also see a lot of roughness and the fact that it's a brand new game. This developer doesn't seem like they have any games that have ever been reviewed enough to get a rating. Anyways, I'll put this on the fall list and we'll come back next year. We're gonna probably have to be a lot more critical in the next year. Next we have another visual novel, and there's still far too many of those on the wish list. It's rated 97% positive. It's anime style, as most visual novels are, because they're all from Japan. It's a Narcissus 10th anniversary anthology project, so this might work itself into something else. Like, there might be some relevancy here if the Narcissus series is actually well received and well known, or maybe not. It has a season pass, which I really haven't ever seen a visual novel have a season pass. It has 11 hours of gameplay. This includes Narcissus. Let's see. And then Narcissus 2, and then Narcissus Himeko's epilogue. And then 3 more standalone stories. Let's see. Here's a kind of useless. Here's kind of useless review. My save game got corrupted. Unless that is a huge issue that's happening at a lot of people, in which case you would see a lot more negative reviews. That's not a very helpful review. So again, this might be in the top 20, top 10 of visual novels. So I don't think I can remove it until I can do some more research. The Steam beta for developers lets developers link their names to publishers. So I just clicked on the developer's name and it took me to Sekai Project's publisher page, which is exactly the same as clicking this. Going through all Sekai Project's many Japanese visual novels doesn't really provide me with any real relevancy. They kind of publish generally good products, but then they are all visual novels, and then that just brings back to the same issue. Next we have a game called Narcosis. So we went from Narcissus to Narcosis, which is a survival horror game. It's almost a patriotic statement. You have a Eastern game that is a visual novel with anime brightly colored characters, and you immediately go to a more Western style game that is super dark and horrific. And this game, at least in how it's depicting itself, is suffering from a little bit of dark screenshot syndrome, which is a phrase I use when I see significant amounts of blackness in the screenshots, not really showing off its graphics very well. This is a game that would probably bother a lot of people if they have any kind of fears of being underwater. I don't think I have any fears like that, so I think I'd be cool. Most horror games don't scare me anyways. This feels like, to me, it would be a game I would play almost like an extended fan version of some of the BioShock 2 elements, where you play underwater and really didn't get to do anything doing that. Yeah, I don't see a real reason to take this off the wish list. This is also supports VR, but it must not require it. let's see, this is also people who worked on this game, worked on the Assassin's Creed, some of the Assassin's Creed games, Dead Secret, Metal Gear Solid, Remember Me, Republic, The Silent Age, and Silent Hill, which is quite a varied list of games, but most of these are positively well received. I'd say Remember Me is probably forgotten, and The Silent Age is probably not anywhere on the same level as Silent Hill or Assassin's Creed. Let's see. I guess you don't need VR to play this. VR mode for this game requires the use of gamepad or a keyboard and mouse. Okay, it's a 3-hour experience. It's 72 on Metacritic. We don't really have to go any further with this. Moving forward. Next we have Naruto Shippuden. Still thinking about getting into fighting games. Naruto is very well received, so playing the most recent Shippuden Naruto fighting game makes sense. I assume Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 is the most recent one, although it is possible it isn't. I don't think I would play 1, 2, and 3 if they were on Steam before playing 4. It probably doesn't matter that much, particularly in a fighting game. Or if I was going to do that, I'd probably go in a somewhat backwards fashion and play the most recent one and then go back and do retrospects. There's not a lot of experience I had with Naruto as far as the anime. It felt like it had a bunch of fighting tournament arcs, but it never really caught my attention, so I watched a few episodes here and there, but no individual episode convinced me to stick with it and continue to watch it. And then I never got anywhere into the later story where like there was the main final boss that I understand, and now there is this whole sequel series, Boruto, which I haven't seen even a minute of animation for. I think maybe Naruto also suffers from having too many characters, and not just focusing on Naruto himself, who didn't get enough abilities fast enough. I'd probably want to see a new enemy character introduced pretty often, and that enemy character having an ability, and then Naruto learning a new ability to counter that ability, or learning a copy of that ability, which didn't seem like that was happening very fastly for the early release. Also, I would say for things like Naruto or Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or any of those series, going back and watching it in marathons is probably a lot better than trying to watch it as it's brand new. You can see this bundle here is the Legacy, which includes 3 and 1 and 2. So you can buy all of them on Steam, and honestly for $70 that's not terrible, because you're getting a little bit of a markup anyways. And let's see, is there really anything else to say here? Honestly, I think I'd prefer to play Dragon Ball Fighters instead of this. I have a lot more familiarity with the Dragon Ball series than Naruto does. But I still kind of want it on the wish list. This is the kind of thing that would have some search engine optimization. If I cover this game and put it on my channel, people might search Rydo and find this and be willing to watch my coverage of it a little bit. Also, in a fighting game though, I'm probably gonna just play the single player experience for whatever that is, which is probably not much. Actually, I wanted to see if we could see this developer. No, it just takes me to Bandai Namco's publisher page. That is so annoying. Like, there's literally no way on Steam now to just say, show me everything made by CyberConnect 2 Co. Limited, not the parent company or the publisher. Moving on, we have a game called Navy Blue and the Spectrum Killers, which I don't know why this is on my wish list in the first place. It clearly needs to be in the fall list, but in all honesty, I think this is probably not a game that even needs to be on the fall list. So let's see if there's, let's watch the gameplay footage and see if there's something here. Oh, I know now. This is a, it feels like it's a spiritual, like, fan-made clone of Mighty Man, Mega Man, not Mighty Man. So yeah, it's a fan-made clone of Mega Man, and that's why this was on the wish list. Is if I was gonna do a series on Mega Man playing this weird game that is totally stealing the idea, might be funny to run as a comparison, to probably to rip this game to shreds and say, like, even though most of the Mega Man games might not be super fresh in their content because they're very old games, this developer of this game still can't hold a candle to it. But that's kind of also a bad reason to spend $10 is to buy a game just to be extremely critical of it. So I'm gonna put it on the fall list, see if maybe it really is somehow good, and we'll see about that in a year. At the end of 2019, all we'll have to do is look at the fall list, and the fall list should be a lot shorter. Next we have Near Death, which is a adventure survival game stranded in Antarctic base. So it's like the game, well, it's like that movie. What is the name of that movie? The Thing. Yes, the remake of The Thing, but not the remake of The Thing. You're stranded in Antarctica. You're trying to survive. It doesn't seem like there's an actual alien or person or enemy. This is from the same developer who made The Novelist. Is The Novelist the game I played? No, this is a different game. There was a game I played that's not The Novelist, where you're a researcher, private investigator investigating a father and his adult daughter hired you, and you're finding bits of this story he wrote, and you see bits of the story as you move the events of the current timeline forward. So it's like this fantasy story that he wrote his little daughter into, and it's going along and it's fine, and then all of a sudden it just has this extremely weird ending that I'm gonna spoil, where the obvious self-insert character of the father who was writing this, what was a fantasy story, and had a obvious self-insert character of his daughter in the fantasy story. All of a sudden the self-insert father character falls in love with the self-insert daughter character, so it has this really creepy, like, incest vibe, and it's like, ooh, this is disgusting, and that's what the characters say, but that's kind of the end of the story too. And this turn comes out of nowhere. It's not like they are setting this up as anything. It's just clearly the developer of the game and was writing some kind of story, and they ran out of time and just wanted to do something ridiculous, I guess, to finish it. Wish I remembered the name of that game though. I covered it on my channel, so but I can't remember it at all. But that was probably one of the weirdest endings to a game I've ever played, and that's saying quite a lot. Next we have Need for Speed Underground. This game is mixed, and it's an EA game, and I really have no love in my heart for EA, so, well, for any video game company. But particularly, we know EA is very greedy, and I don't see a reason to give EA money to play Need for Speed Underground when 67% of the people are positive and nobody else likes it. Let's see. We have negative reviews of extremely repetitive, kind of boring, feels too linear, nothing like for example, Need for Speed, what would that be? Need for Speed Maximum, I don't know what the W would be. Let's see. So yeah, it's a bad Need for Speed game, and there's enough racing games on Steam that I don't see a reason why I would have the bad ones on the wish list. Also, it's not like the Need for Speed series has a continuing story, so like there's really no reason to play Need for Speed Undercover when you could instead maybe play Burnout Paradise, which came out in 2009, or Need for Speed Shift, or Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, or Shift 2 Unleashed. Well, don't do Shift 2 Unleashed, because that's mixed reviews also. So of these 5 games in this bundle, this EA Racing Pack, you could limit yourself down to 3 of these and have a much better experience. Of course, I could click on EA Black Box, but it's, I imagine, oh, I'm actually a little surprised it didn't just take me to EA's list of every game they've ever made. Actually, when you start to look at like all the games that EA has, there's quite a lot of good ones, but I imagine if I kept on scrolling down, we'd run into some negative ones. Maybe not. I guess you can also see there's a lot of Sims DLC. It's also worth remembering EA Origin exists, so a lot of EA's games are not available on Steam too, so it's almost like a self-imposed blacklisting as far as I'm concerned, because I don't want a secondary launcher. I don't want to have to deal with EA Origin, or at the very least I want to buy the game and have it listed as a game I own on Steam and launch through Steam, even if it does just launch another launcher. That's what Ubisoft and Uplay does, is you get this game code and then it launches into Uplay, which sucks, but it's better than nothing. Moving on, we have Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, which is mostly positive, so I'll leave that one on the wish list. But I really probably should think about removing a lot of games by category, like looking at the wish list maybe in a couple years and saying, just show me all the racing games and let's get it down to the top 5 racing games, or just show me all of the RPG games, let's get it down to the top 10 RPG games. Make some more difficult decisions there. There is also some potential here that there isn't a lot of single player content in racing games. And of course, racing games are constantly getting better and better with their graphics, so even this that looks pretty good compared to a regular game is pretty bad graphically compared to a modern game. It's just not shiny enough, not textured enough, and that's a 2010 game. Need for Speed Shift, again, just leave it on the wish list if it's rated positively. Then we can move over to a game called Nefarious. Play as the villain Nefarious in an action platformer. This looks like an action platformer. And it looks like a love letter to a lot of classic games. Let's see. You thwart various heroes in reverse boss fights, recreated iconic battles where you control the boss. So you go and sometimes beat the boss and then replace them, or you play as the boss just out of nowhere. And clearly this game would have to have platforming to make the game long enough to do that. But this is an interesting idea of a parody of a video game. Like, parody has not been tested much in video games or much in the United States at all. So the idea of this is actually very, very interesting. And now it's on Switch apparently. And more small indie games are coming out on Switch. This developer hasn't made anything else. So this idea has caught my attention enough that I'm actually going to put it at the top of the wishlist column. That way we can move forward and think about it. I'm not 100% sure how far you could take a series like this if you were going to make a sequel, which is very possibly they would. I could see maybe making 2 or 3 games in this series, but at a certain point you can't keep it as a platformer, you can't keep it in 2D. If you're going to play as the bad guys in a lot of games, you're going to run into having to move to the 3D realm. Let's see. I just want to sit here and watch this entirety of this trailer. Alright, moving on. Next we have Negligee, which is tags sexual content and nudity and mature content. This is the first game to ever be released on Steam 100% hardcore uncensored, and oddly, for that reason, it's actually not allowed in 23 countries, one of which being Japan, for its Japanese anime artistic style. Although it is actually a Western game. So it has this relevance. I have no idea if it's possible or if ever I would be able to cover a game like this. Maybe I play a game like this and then just talk about it straight without showing anything except for maybe a few example screenshots. YouTube and Twitch has gotten definitely more conservative, whereas Steam has gone, in my opinion, the right way towards being more anti-censorship, and they've allowed this game and every game, basically anything, to be uncensored on Steam, and this was the first one. And then honestly, there hasn't really been a second that has been a really good quality product. There's been a lot of floods of people making troll games and very low effort games that say they're uncensored. There have been games that are uncensored, but more in the softcore region where it's not going to go for like full genitalia showing. So I don't even know what the next game is, and Negligee really didn't run into any trouble yet. I think everybody is just cautiously being optimistic and releasing their games. A lot of developers are updating and patching their old games that had to be censored for Steam previously to be uncensored now. Now I will say there is this problem that happens a lot of times when you have a lewd game like this, where the animators, the creators of the games really have not a full understanding on the wide variety of the tropes as far as the potential girls that would be in the game, or potential guys here. So you have here 3 exactly the same skin-toned women being shown here that are seemingly exactly the same height. You have what looks like maybe light green eyes or brown eyes, and then darker brown eyes and red eyes, but nobody's wearing glasses. You have long hair that is cut this way, you have long hair that is cut this way, and you have long hair that's cut this way. You have 2 blondes. You have bust sizes that are somewhat too similar. You're not going from, say, an A cup here. This is probably closer to a B, maybe a C cup, to this character who is possibly a G or an H cup as far as the size. You have waists that are all the same hourglass shape. They're not insanely small, but they are very similar. They're all working apparently at the same store, so they have the exact same clothes in these pictures. So there's not a lot of variety there. This is a Yuri visual novel, it says, so that's, I believe, if I remember right, girl on girl action. Let's see. And then a lot of these visual novels have different endings and all of that. So yeah, female to female relationships. So there's a lot of historical relevancy here to own this, and I do want to support the industry, certainly. Like these are adult games. Adult games should exist. There should be an adult game market. I don't think it needs to be hidden. The truth is, most of these games don't have anything that is as extreme or weird compared to what you could find online very easily for free. So it's a matter of the industry itself growing up and being mature. But we always want things to be labeled correctly, and you're not going to see like an ESRB adults only rating or anything, I imagine, on any of these games. But Steam has required you to do a mature description. You do have to click here and click a box to see these games on the page, and I imagine they will probably improve their age verification eventually by larger amounts. They'll probably at a certain point require people to purchase things with their own name on their own card, instead of, say, having a credit card that has somebody else's first name on there, where you might be using a parent's credit card. And they'll probably need to do like an age verification service which exists before you can even see this. Also, though, there's a certain point where Steam is going to have to do a little bit more as it's going through growing pains to make sure that the pages that are being shown here are age appropriate and family friendly. Like, I really don't have any objection to what's being shown in this one frame, for example, but there is a fear if I scroll up, particularly for a bunch of other games that are less honest about it, that there's a fear that some of these screenshot images up here might show some level of nudity, and there's really no reason for that. The storefront should be censored. I'm perfectly fine with that, but then the game itself should be uncensored. Moving on, next we have a game called Neighbors from Hell, the compilation. I'm gonna drink some water, so now would be a good time for you to pause the video and take a break yourself. So, Neighbors from Hell compilation is a 2004 game from THQ Nordic. It's a comedy casual adventure classic according to the user tags. This animation looks very bad. The question is, what kind of game is this? Is this a point and click adventure game? Let's see. Living next door to you is a real neighbor from hell, and it's time to have your revenge. The compilation includes the original Neighbors from Hell and its sequel, Neighbors from Hell 2. It feels like a point-and-click adventure experience where you're trying to irritate, harm, or kill your neighbor, which the idea sounds kind of funny, but in reality it's not a great game. Going with a claymation style helps make this seem a lot better. So he's booby trapping the house, causing accidents. So it's a Home Alone simulator, if you've seen the Home Alone movie series. But I imagine this is gonna stay within the realm of cartoon-ish violence and not get too bad. This community helped pick this title from Steam Greenlight. Steam Greenlight doesn't exist anymore. Because THQ Nordic is publishing it, maybe it has some relevancy. The fact that it's overwhelmingly positive also gives it some relevancy. It's a pretty old game, 14 years old. You probably wouldn't get away with making something like this nowadays. Or you'd have to at least be a little bit more imaginative on the reasoning for your actions. Or you go even more cartoony on the graphics. See what this developer, if they've made anything else. No, they haven't. So yeah, I'll leave this on the wish list. There's really a low chance that I'd pick it out and buy it, but maybe eventually it would come down to a cheaper price. Like $1.99 sounds a lot more realistic for such an old game, such a niche game. Moving on, we have another anime sex game that's rated 95% possible, Nico Nin X Heart 2. I'm gonna have to probably research some of these games a little bit more and decide should they really be on the wish list or not. A lot of those have, like, a lot of those games have been filtered out already. Clearly there's a lot more loot games on Steam than what I'm showing here, so mostly I'm keeping the wish list as this curated experience where if I am ever able to cover these style of games, I know the ones that are of a better quality. And even though this game is tagged as nudity and sexual content, now that we have the recent edition of the mature content descriptor, you can actually see it as having lewd jokes and dialogue, which probably isn't super efficient, not super offensive, and a character bathing nude but covered in public, and the characters bathing but covered by bubbles. So it's actually a more standard Japanese cheesecake game, I suppose. Something that honestly most Japanese would not have a problem with their 14 or 15-year-old playing, but certainly the ultra sex conservative of society of the United States, where Steam is based out of, does take that less kindly. And see, that's the thing about a lot of these games, is that honestly it's coming up to a line you probably don't want to come up to on YouTube, but honestly, if there really isn't showing anything, if it's only implied nudity, that's not that bad. It still should be age gated, but it's hardly even approaching softcore as a description. But again, I don't want to click through all of these screenshots. Next we have Nico Pa Live, which is a free-to-play VR game. Nico, by the way, in Japanese is cat, so these are cat girl games. Apparently this is a VR game that is only 15 minutes long. Let's see. It was originally an April Fool's prank. It's now become a VR game. Let's see, in this one, a lot of the descriptions just say this, not appropriate for all ages, may not be appropriate for viewing at work. Steam is going to have to redo how developers fill out this. Right now it seems like you can just type in the description. It feels like there need to be some checkboxes to explain it and keep it as a more consistent project system. I'm not sure that this could be played without VR. So, it says VR support, but it doesn't say you actually have to have VR. So yeah, again, just another game on the wish list that I probably can never play. Taking a quick shift to the other direction, this is probably a kids game. We have Nelly Coutelot, The Foul Fleet, which is a point-and-click adventure. I love how zoomed in the camera is so you can see detail. I love that this is a unique art style. It feels like it's an art style and not just somebody who can't actually draw things correctly. Yeah, let's see, is there much more that we could take from this or say? It's rated very positively, so I don't see a reason why I'd take this point-and-click adventure off, although I have so many on my wish list I will eventually have to make some decisions. And then this is from Application Systems, a developer who has like a Ghostbusters ripoff game that's rated mostly positively. Since there are no good Ghostbuster games for sale right now, that's probably fine. And then, let's see, a VR game, and then another point-and-click adventure game, and another point-and-click adventure game. So they seem to be mostly sticking to point-and-click adventure games, and it seems like they're doing what seems to be a pretty good job. Oh, I remember seeing this guy, and boy, does he have some wild style for his hair, the choice there. He's like a Swedish version, if I was to guess. I guess he's UK version of Weird Al Yankovic. Moving forward though, unforeseen incidents I just opened up. I think it's probably already on my wish list, but I'll double check. Lamplight City, I just opened up again. I think that's probably on the wish list already. I'll just double check. Next we have Neocab, which is not out yet. It is supposedly described as an RPG, but it seems more like what it actually is a almost visual novel experience. You're playing as an Uber driver, and you're also researching, I think, a murder, and so you drive these people, they talk to you, kind of a taxi cab confession style game, and eventually you will get enough information to solve the mystery, is I guess the general idea. But nobody really knows because this game is not out yet, so this totally should be on the follow list. Next we have Neo Feud, which is a cyber dystopian game. It looks like a point-and-click adventure game that is heavily inspired by well, it says it's inspired by Blade Runner and Game of Thrones. Yeah, so this one looks a little rough, to be honest. The animation doesn't look that great, but I don't see a reason why I'd want to remove it from my wish list. The developer hasn't made anything else, but that doesn't really mean anything. So yeah, we'll leave it on the wish list. Next we have Neon Struct, which is a 2015 game rated 87% positive. Cyberpunk first-person stealth game, it says. The animation does not look amazingly good. I kind of need to see this one in play, because I'm not 100% certain I want to keep this. For a brief time, this low polygon art style felt like an art style. Very few game developers were using it. It felt like there was reason to use it, or at least a good justification. But since that has happened, it really has just become the realm of any low effort game developer that is just doing a Unity asset flip game, for example, will use low polygon characters. And see, even then, asset flippers usually don't even use low polygon characters anymore. So let's see the reviews, because I'm still iffy about this one. Let's see. I bought this game because I heard it reminds people of the good old Deus Ex and Thief. Sadly, Neon Struct is too easy and too simple, too bare bones, and just plain boring. Finished it only because I paid for it, which is a shame for him, because he could have gotten a refund if he'd been under 2 hours automatically, and you can still ask for a refund otherwise. But enjoyment was almost non-existent during my playtime. You know that feel when you make yourself play a game instead of wanting to play it. This is the case for me in Neon Struct. P.S. The music is awesome. This is pretty much the only good part of the game. I'm not sold here. A very, very basic stealth game in everything from wooden animation to lack of 3D sound. where it is impossible to tell if the patrolling guard's footsteps are coming from behind you or the floor above or below. There's no reason to play this when the classics Thief games are as cheap and, thanks to community enhancements, as awesome as the day they were ever released. So yeah, I actually haven't played the Thief series, so there's a good argument to play that instead. And I own, like, I'm pretty sure I own Deus Ex 1, which would look a little bit worse than this game, but not by much. I don't think this game has anything to offer. The idea of it being super simple and basic might have appealed to me, but I've played other stealth-based games and I'm not so bad at them that I think I need to play a super simple one first. This is from a developer who's made a few games. I'm not sure if they're great. Like, You Have to Win This Game, for example, doesn't look like a game I actually want to play. And then Super Win the Game is obviously just a continuation of that. Slayer Shock doesn't look that good. Gunmetal Academia Zero again doesn't look interesting. Nor does Gunmetal Academia. And then Epinomius looks like it's a continuation of the same idea of Neon Struck. So most of the games this developer has, for one reason or another, doesn't seem interesting. Like Eldritch is the RPG game that is really highly reviewed. I don't know why it was so highly reviewed and received, but it was 88% positive. But I'm gonna close this tab because it's an E game, so either I've made the decision already that I don't want to play Eldritch, or I've made the decision to keep it already, so I don't want to knowingly undo a decision I've already made. So I'm just, of course it's been so long now, it takes so long to get through all these games, I don't remember what my decision was either. Moving on, we have a game called Nephies, a short and atmospheric puzzle game, walking simulator. I think I could probably remove this. There's quite a few of these walking simulators, puzzle games on Steam, and if something's not in the higher rating level, then I might as well decide to not play it. There's also a mixed reviewed Nephies Begins and a slightly positive with 16 reviews Nephies Ascension. So this is a whole series. So a review says, an overall beautiful game with some decently interesting puzzles, challenged by a few poor design decisions and a cliche ending. It has a lot of potential, and for 10 to 13 minutes of gameplay, $2 isn't fantastic, but it's not exactly a lot of money. It looks beautiful, is narrated well, and although the puzzles are all virtually the same, they are well thought out and do not feel too out of place. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that take you out of the experience. A few things feel too game-like. The orb collection UI, the achievement placements, their names, a few things that occur, which is unfortunate. The choice of model for the puzzle is also confusing at first, as the base and the turtle face a different direction from the character, which makes it an unnecessary complication to the puzzle that doesn't really add anything but frustration. I can't really recommend it, but would give it a thumb sideways for effort and promise. Let's see, you seriously walk around a small environment, turning 4 statues in the right direction takes 30 minutes, that's it. So yeah, this doesn't seem like it's at the top tier of these types of games. And none of these screenshots seem to show a turtle and a base. at all, oddly enough. See that there's a chance here that this is just also an asset flip game. It probably is, if I was to guess. And it's 50% off right now during the Halloween sale for 99 cents. That's still probably too much. I was thinking maybe if it was 49 cents that would make a little bit more sense. Yeah, it seems like this game developer just is not to a level of quality. Drizzle Path is mixed. Drizzle Path Genie is mixed. Bottle is mixed. Drizzle Path Glass is mixed. Nephenes mixed. Mostly positive, at least for Bottle Pilgrim. Ascension is positive and positive, so he's getting better, I suppose, ever so slowly, but that's not saying a lot here. This is not the level of quality of games that I want to cover. I am not the type of YouTuber that just wants to scrape the bottom of the barrel as far as Steam and then end up doing coverage that is nothing but complaining and whining about how there are so many bad games on Steam, particularly when most people never even see these games. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this cleanup on screen and as a recording, is because it's showing off a lot of games that I imagine most people wouldn't ever see, and for good reason sometimes, but also just because Steam itself is not really designed to push people to see small independent games that are developed by people, a single person, or games developed many years ago that are no longer relevant. YouTube is getting that way also, where it's not designed to really promote variety or diversity as far as what is offered to be seen. So here we have a game called Neverending Nightmares, which is a pencil drawn animation story, very bloody, very graphic. A little surprised that it's dropped from 75% overall to 69%. I wonder if maybe there's a reason for the drop in the reviews. Like maybe it doesn't run well anymore. Let's see. Game is mediocre. The only thing unique about it is the art style, which is cool, but the gameplay is dreadful, monotony. The story is bland. The endings range from disappointing to awful and abrupt. And in the 2 hours I spent getting 100% completion, mostly consisted of opening doors to similar, if not repeating, rooms. So it really is a game that seems like it's just really worth playing on the art style, and you've seen people say not worth $14, wait until it gets down to $3. So what is the price of the game right now while it's, I assume, on sale? Let's come back here. $3.75. The default price is $15. So yeah, I can see that. So I'd have to be a little careful, certainly on the price on a lot of these games. We can see that historically the lowest price was $2.99, so 75% discount. Generally speaking, I'd like to have at least a 75% discount before I buy a game anyways. Also certainly not struggling for horror games. I have plenty of them. Moving on, we have partial nudity apparently. A game called Nevermind that came out in 2015, 73%. This is a horrific experience that seems like the environment changes. Yes, this is the one where you use a webcam or a supported heart rate sensor, and if you're stressed and scared about the game, it changes the environment and makes it worse. Which is an idea I thought up many years ago. They didn't steal my idea. I mean, it's a generic idea, but I'm surprised more game developers haven't taken that idea and moved with it, where they make horror games that are designed to mess with people when they're scared. Or, you know, you can go in the other direction too, is if people are excited, a heart rate monitor would be able to tell that. But there's actually a point here that I would like to point out. You actually don't need a webcam or a heart rate monitor to tell if a player is excited or scared. All you have to do is monitor their actions on the controller. If somebody is scared, they will take their hands off the controller for a short amount of time and not do anything. If somebody is excited, they'll be looking around the environment a lot more. So if you map somebody's percentage of what they're looking at, are they turning to the left and looking, are they turning to the right and looking, are they looking up and down, that tells you at least one indicator that the player is excited. If they are just looking straight forward and not turning their head, then you know they're not excited. And you interact with that in, say, a horror game by you make a loud sound and you see if they ignore that loud sound completely, or if they stop moving, or perhaps if they make a loud sound in the right ear and you see them running far to the left, you know you've got them there. And you can program the game to then wait a little bit until they have calmed down and then make the loud sound again. You could really mess with people. I believe this game might have been made by like a experimenting psychologist or something. I don't know if this developer has anything else to sell. No, not really. I guess volume 2 would be it. In fairness, this is probably not the greatest game, but it is an interesting idea. Let's see. You do not need a heart rate monitor to play it. Let's see. Do you need VR to play it, though? That's my question. It's available via almost any standard webcam on a minimum spec PC. Without a webcam or heart rate sensor, the biofeedback specific features will be unavailable, but the core game itself will be fully playable. That'd be interesting to decide whether I would want to do that or not. Like, I don't actually own a webcam, I don't believe, but I could probably get something cheap and plug it in, depending on not whether the game would show that image that it's getting on top of the game's own art. Let's see. Supports virtual reality and the Tobii iExpress eye tracking controller. This is a pretty cool controller. It's too expensive though. Wow, you can play it using the Apple Watch. I was wondering about that. This game has not been evaluated by the U.S. Federal Drug Administration. What is it? Food and Drug Administration. Let's see. Certainly, this game has relevancy for its groundbreaking attempt at inputs. Its gimmick there. At least let's Let's move forward though. Let's see. Nevermind soundtrack volume 2. Oh, I thought the DLC said volume 2 as in an episode, second episode of the game. Never mind, we don't need that. Next we have Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition, which is 63% positive in the last 30 days and 73%. I don't think that this is probably one of the RPG games that I would play, but I'll keep an eye on it. Neverwinter Nights being the one last game from the Baldur's Gate developer that I have on my wish list, where their games are built in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and it still probably is not enough to keep it on my wish list. What's weird is this was released in 2018, as I assume a remaster re-release. Not much of a remaster really. Let's be honest here though and just watch the video. I'm gonna drink some water, so now might be a good time to pause the video too. Yeah, I'm really not seeing anything here that makes this seem realistic. Like, if I was gonna play a game like this, why not just play World of Warcraft? Even if Neverwinter Nights was very popular and was a game that had relevancy 10 years ago, I think that's all been sucked out of the room by things like Skyrim and World of Warcraft. Yeah, I don't see anything special here that doing a retrospective for a game like this makes sense. And I have no idea how long this would be to play. So that's getting removed. Next we have New Gundam Breaker. I suppose I can put this one on the follow list. This game looked really cool, as it is Gundam model kits that fight each other. So it plugs into two things, one being the idea of the model kits and painting your own versions of Gundams, and one being the idea of having Gundams fight each other. But unfortunately, I think it's just got major problems as a port. Like, even the level of detail in this trailer has some problems. Man, that is really blurry. I don't think that's me. I don't think I suddenly lost a bunch of bandwidth. I think they just put a very poor quality video up as their trailer. Let's see. So you have these Gundam characters fighting each other inside the store that sells Gundam characters, and maybe that is just a fancy looking background, but the idea looked interesting. Certainly we could look and see why people hate it. Let's see. I'll say it looks okay for what it is, a Gundam game. Environments look average, but the Gundams themselves look nice. That's the positive. Here comes the negative. Camera is a wild beast and can only be half tamed. You can shut off a lock on the boxes, which solves half of the breakneck lock on that occurrence, but not for enemy units. Might as well just not lock on anything, or you will be rarely hitting your main target if there is any more than one unit near you. It goes on. Let's see. Top 10 anime betrayals. It's not unheard of for Japanese developers though to screw over their fans and screw over anime fans in particular. This has been one of the many lots that anime fans have always is that licensed games, licensed products are often very, very bad quality. Is that too long didn't read? You wanted a Gundam game? Here it is. Try and enjoy it. It's a hot mess. So people are complaining about just generic gameplay and functionality and graphics issues. This is from Bandai Namco. I'm pretty sure Bandai Namco doesn't care. Bandai Namco might be a great example of a company that is too big, and if it were forced, particularly Japanese companies, they have businesses in all kinds of fields. So you have companies that sell insurance and sell video games and sell books and sell music. If there was a non-horizontal monopoly clause where your companies in Japan had to focus on 2 or 3 like-minded things they do, then they would have to focus on making better products instead of just diversifying all over the place. It's a shame. It really is a shame. But then I guess it's almost poetic in a way. The problem with Gundam, at least in the West, has always been which Gundam to watch and how much do you watch, because there's so many Gundam shows. It's actually pretty impossible for anybody in the West to be caught up and understand the entirety of the story, and at best you'll find something like, I believe, Gundam Wing, that is kind of its own side story. But also, to be fair, Gundam itself has been just used by Bandai Namco to make the same series over and over again and sell more model kits. And that's really what this all comes down to, is they're making all their money selling model kits, which are these toys that come apart. They come in boxes as pieces and you have to put them together, and they're extremely expensive. There really isn't an equivalent in the Western world. It's kind of like a ship in a bottle, except for it's a Gundam in a bottle, or a Gundam in a box. Anyways, new Gundam Breaker looked like it might have been good. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and I have no faith in them actually fixing the game, which is a shame. Also, to say something else that I've already said a lot, totally the wrong kind of game to make as far as a Gundam game. Like, Gundam is a long-running political intrigue story. It's about a world in a universe that is almost consistently always at war amongst many factions. It is a political thriller with very interesting characters and interesting events. You don't make a game like this. You make something with interesting characters and political intrigue and a story and war, and you do that. I wouldn't be surprised if I was to make a Gundam game. I very possibly would take all the Gundam fighting elements out, because that is just like window dressing. It's not the important part of the stories. But maybe you turn it into something like a JRPG with a lot of visual novel conversation style happening around the grinding JRPG fights. Moving on, I recently added this game, so I know what this is. It's not so much a game as it is a, I believe, VR way of running some kind of emulator. I'm not 100% sure if it's you're running your own emulator or if you're running their emulator for old arcade games. So each one of these arcade boxes and arcade cabinets that you see in this environment. You program those and you set those to run some ROM that the game doesn't come with, and so it becomes this 3D virtualization of that. Now that is not the reason why this is on the wish list though, because in all honesty there's a thing called libretro, Libretro. You would use that more likely to run ROMs, and it would make a lot more sense, and put it in full screen and make it a better experience. The reason why this is on the wish list is actually for the mini games. I'm trying to find a developer who has like a good version of skee ball and air hockey and coin push sliders in particular. Let's see if we can find a picture. Not really. Let's see. I think this is the one we just looked at, so maybe this one will show it different. So the basketball game here, there's a skee ball game, there's an air hockey game. These little elements in VR are still things that I have yet to find a great version. VR watching a movie is an interesting idea too. I'm not 100% sure this game really delivers and what you want. There's skee ball finally. And I don't believe it actually does have a coin push game. There's a whack-a-mole game. So in the West, as arcades are becoming fewer and fewer, there's basically none at this point in the West, in the United States. Having a nostalgic experience like this is very appealing to me. It wouldn't be the greatest experience for me because I don't own VR, but I'm fairly certain you can play this without VR. It has to say this right at the front. Let's see. So yeah, you customize the arcade cabinets, you customize video files or stream files from online services like YouTube, you customize the music in the boombox, and then there's 10 mini games included. So yeah, I'm not sure if this can be played without a VR headset. Yeah, that's the important thing I was looking for. So yeah, I want to own this. I don't know how you review this too much. You sell it for what it is, I suppose, and say, well, this is an interesting experience that can be improved a lot better if you happen to have a lot of ROMs. Next we have New York Mysteries High Voltage, which is a hidden object game. It's rated 92% positive of 163 reviews. It's part of a series, so one assumes that the next thing I click on is New York Mysteries again. Yeah. So New York Mysteries, The Lantern of Souls, another hidden object game. I'm trying to keep only hidden object games that have series, so that there's at least 2 or 3 of them to play in a row, of a somewhat similar story. But I still probably have way too many hidden object games already. I don't believe I own any of these already. If I do, I'd be surprised by that. So I'm gonna have to double check and make sure that all of these on. Next we have another game called Newton and the Apple Tree, which is tagged sexual content and nudity. It's a visual novel. It's 93% positive and it's kind of brand new, so honestly, this one should be just on the follow list. We can see the mature content description. It's not saying much, is it? Put it on the follow list. It's very questionable. I'm gonna have to ask myself, is like, do I really need to grow the list of visual novels that are tagged with sexual content and nudity? Probably not. Like, if I am gonna cover visual novel games, I already have so many of them already. Next we have Nex Machina, which looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter, very flashy and very fast-paced, which is kind of the things I don't like about a lot of games, is I don't want to have the screen full of flashy, distracting graphics that it makes it difficult to see what you're actually doing. I don't like twin-stick shooters for a similar reason, in that they don't look like they're ever that fun. They look like they're a little too repetitive. But this one is 88% positive. It's a pretty recent one. It looks like it might have some abilities in its dash function that you don't see very often. There's just a lot of polish I'm seeing for this game, which maybe if this was a 2018 game I'd put it on the follow list, but I guess at the moment I'll just leave it on the wish list because it is good enough. The only other game this developer has made is Outland, which is probably a game I wouldn't want to keep on my wish list. Going back to Nex Machina, it looks like it is fighting robot spiders that look a lot like the Tachikoma from the Ghost in the Shell TV series. All of these top-down twin-stick shooters are inspired from games like Smash TV and Robotron. The fact that this game admits it is a breath of fresh air, honestly. Both of those games are pretty old. And honestly, I think Smash TV and Robotron being older causes them to move a little bit slower, which I think is probably what I'd prefer to play, is something that's a little bit easier and slower instead of hyper fast paced. If the entirety of the video game industry decided to double the speed of all games, I would get knocked out of a lot of styles of games. Because I would just not be able to push the buttons fast enough and interact as people age, though. But I wouldn't be the only person that would not be able to play games as if they speed up too much. A lot of people, as they get older, would have trouble. This one is a fast-paced, dynamic platformer. A player uses the powers of light and dark in an epic journey to save the world from the forest of chaos. This looks a lot like a hack and slack version of Ikaruga. I don't think I want to remove this from the wishlist though, being rated pretty positively. I'm willing to try these games, but I definitely want to be careful about ones that say that they're brutally difficult and fast-paced. Those two things in conjunction are killer phrases for me. Next we have Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. There's also, I believe, DLC that has been released, so there's that. So this is a JRPG that I think is more kid-friendly slightly. It's a teen instead of like M. It's inspired by Studio Ghibli-esque animation. Ni no Kuni 1 was actually made with some amount of assistance. I don't think a ton of assistance from Studio Ghibli. If you don't know Studio Ghibli, they make a bunch of Japanese movies that are very kid-friendly and get ported over by Lake Buena Vista, which is a shell company of Disney. Spirited Away is a Studio Ghibli movie, if you're familiar with that. There's been several others. The problem here, like, this would totally be at the top of my wish list, and if it weren't for the fact that Ni no Kuni 1 is not on Steam. It's like a PlayStation exclusive, and because of that experience, like, you really are going to jump in and have kind of a weird experience here. It's 81% positive over its lifetime. See, this kid, I believe, was the main protagonist of the first game, and I think he still is, but he just arrived in the world of Ni no Kuni, or well, that's probably not the name of the world, because Ni no Kuni is I am the king in Japanese, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, it'll stay on the wish list, but it is a hard choice to make to jump into a game in this sequel. Probably not as hard of a choice as many other JRPGs, because there are definitely some ones that are probably worth playing on Steam that are missing 3-4 prequels. And then you get into things like the Final Fantasy series, where maybe you just play Final Fantasy 10 or 13 or 7 and you ignore all the others because there's really no connection between those stories anyways. Let's see. Next we have a game called Nikki the Home Alone Golf Ball. I have no idea why this even made it to the wish list, but I'll put it on the follow list. I don't have to really decide right now because it's a 2018 game. I think the idea was to find a physics game where you're shooting yourself or trying to solve a puzzle that way. Yeah, I think the idea is kind of a cool idea of flinging yourself that way, but anyways, put that on the follow list, move forward. What NIC. Next we have Nier Automata. Not really sure where Nier Automata is as far as its playability on Steam. It probably is totally playable now. It had some problems, missing some features and some polish compared to playing it on the PlayStation. And they promised an update, and I'm not sure that they ever actually released an update. So it's been, I think, a year since this game has come out, or over a year, and yeah, I don't think it ever really got that update, and there might be a unofficial update that is better. That helps it run. So yeah. Yeah, you go. Absolute garbage. PC port recently started crashing no matter what I do. Can't play the game on PC anymore. Just buy a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One. Hopefully in 5 months it'll work again. And see, this was October 6th. Despite following the advice of many guides, including playing in windowed mode and modifying my CPU core count for the game amongst others, I consistently experience so-called white screen of death. It's a shame. See, this really was an example, in fact one of the first examples of Japanese developers who had not been putting things on PC and not bringing them to Steam, breaking into Steam. It is part, I think, having to do with the fact that PlayStation moved its main offices to the United States and started kind of changing how it dealt with people, and it's becoming more and more recently obvious that PlayStation is not treating its Japanese partners very well, which is insane, really. The fact that Nier Automata also came out on the Xbox One shows that Microsoft is figuring out how to bring more Japanese developers over. It is a Square Enix game, so you know, Square Enix is not great as far as supporting their games either. So I want to own this game. I think I could probably muddle through it and make sure that it actually is playable and finishable. This game has, slight spoiler for this game, it has multiple endings, and I'm not sure I'd really want to try to find every single multiple ending, because a lot of them are joke endings that aren't worth doing. But yeah, this is totally a game I want to play. People loved it like crazy. Despite it being a pretty bad PC port, it's still 82% positive overall. But do I put it at the top of my wish list? I don't know if there really is as much relevancy to do that now. Like, I'd love to play it. I love Bayonetta, for example. Bayonetta also on Steam. A little clunky in parts. Not the best PC port ever. But yeah, I don't think a Nier Automata 2 is coming out. But there might be another game in the Nier series that comes out, but I haven't heard any kind of announcement there. They'd kind of be dumb not to make an Automata 2. So at that point, maybe I'd play this game in catching up. But until there's some kind of announcement like that, it's just going to stay on the regular wish list. Let's see. Next we have a game called Nightcall, which is coming out in 2019, so I don't have to make any decisions there. I just put it on the follow list. You can see it's kind of... I wouldn't be surprised if we ran across at least one game that says it's coming out in 2020 or later. Next we have Night in the Woods, which people seem to love, and so honestly I wouldn't have been sold on this game for these graphics and for what looks like a generic adventure game, but the masses here, 5,372 people reviewed this game and it's 94% positive. That tells me I should keep it on my wish list and check it out, just because so many people are vouching for it. Next we have Night Trap, the 25th anniversary. I guess I would put this at the top of my list. The truth is, this game really should have never been relevant, but people in the United States Congress were talking about it and saying it was too violent, which is ridiculous. So I do want to play it. It's never going to gain or remove relevancy. In my mind, it will just always have that story and always be worth owning and talking about for that reason alone. This is actually the beginning of the scene that's a complaint. So these bad guys, I don't know what they're supposed to be, like ninjas or something, they grab this girl with what is a prop that hooks around her neck and acts kind of like a dog collar and a leash, or a dog collar on a like bite pole. It doesn't actually strangle her or anything. It's a very solid loop around her neck. They put it around her neck. I think maybe they're supposed to be vampires, and the implication was that they were draining her blood, but I don't think it actually shows any blood moving in any tubes or anything. And then I think they just awkwardly shuffle everybody through this doorway there, which I believe is a secret panel doorway. The point of the game is to protect these girls that are having a slumber party. And like there was all kinds of complaints of the game being too violent. There was complaints about the girl in the negligee here being underdressed, and the actress being too young looking, when I think she was. All the actresses are actually pretty old for the ages they were actually playing. The point of the game, though, is to set off traps in this booby-trapped house. There's a game called Double Switch that I think does this a lot better. That I'd really love to play that when it comes out. But yeah, see that metal claw? That's what they try to use. But they're awkwardly just shuffling in basically trash bags. And so you have this booby-trapped house, and you're supposed to catch these bad guys before they can get near any of the girls. And apparently you can't just have the traps always armed and ready to go, because the girls might step on them and it might activate. Double Switch works the same way. Yeah, it's really not the greatest of games. It is a time management game because you have to switch between different camera angles. It's rated T for teen. This is the game that I believe caused the ESRB to be formed. But yeah, it totally just has historical note. So I'd want to play it once, and there's some extras certainly here to look at and talk about too. Let's keep moving forward. Next we have this game that's mixed, but I don't think I'd remove it, called Night Cry. This is, I believe, the first game, if not a spiritual clone of the game that had the Scissor Man. I guess this is not that game. I guess this is a spiritual successor of the Scissor Man. Or maybe it has nothing to do with the Scissor Man, looking at these screenshots, because it kind of doesn't seem like it does. I was thinking of a completely different game. There's a weird there's a weird game that came out many decades ago, a couple 10-15 years ago, of this guy with a giant pair of scissors that would chase you around. But it's definitely not this game, because that was 2D graphics. So I wonder why it's mixed. Look, the developer is called Nude Maker, and this is from AGM Playism, which I think doesn't make. They publish a mixed bag. So let's look at the reviews. Let's see why people don't like it. Let's see. Frustrating and clunky game mechanics makes a good horror game. Let's see. Okay, I'm a big fan of the original game called Clock Tower. That's the game I'm thinking about, and the game sounded interesting, so I decided to back the Kickstarter. So this was a Kickstarter game, which always is a potential troublemaker. And you can see this guy activated the Steam key from that Kickstarter, I assume. Now the day's come, and I decided to give it a try. Well, it's not good, it's not bad either, it's just not good. It functions. Didn't hit anything it really described as a bug, other than perhaps a performance issue. It didn't crash, and the controls were more or less worked the same way they were intended to work. The problem is The difference between a bad game and a good game is often just polish. So yeah, people are not happy with the quality of a Kickstarter game. Surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, I think this still has some historical reason for me to play it, because if it is related to Clock Tower, which maybe it is, or maybe it's just a fan clone of Clock Tower. Let's see. This is weird. Please be advised the current system requirements are still temporary. And this came out in 2016, so are they still temporary? Clock Tower. No. There is no port of Clock Tower on Steam. And then this really comes down to, I guess, the fact that even if this actually is the same developer as the game Clock Tower, there's really no reason to play this. And still, yeah. This needs to be removed from the wishlist. It's a shame, but it's not a surprise that a Kickstarter game comes out in poor quality, particularly horror games. If I get down to the point where I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as point and click adventure games, I might come back and play something like this. There's also a question about, like, why is this 3D animation? Again, for a point and click adventure game, why not stick with the 2D animation? It'd probably be cheaper. Moving on, we have Nightmares from the Deep series. These are point and click adventure hidden object games, actually. So yeah, there's several of those that I'll keep on the wish list. Yep. We really don't have to make much of a decision there, or at least I'm not. I'm so crippled with indecision that I'm not making any decision on the hidden object games when I probably should. Probably should do a second pass off screen and just look at all the hidden object games. I never played Nights into Dreams. It was a Dreamcast game, I believe, and because it has that Sega branding, it's a Sega game, it's a Dreamcast game, I think people kind of liked it. You can see people rated it very positively. This is one of those hidden gems to me where I could go back and say, hey, let's see how this actually plays in modern times. Is this really worth playing at this point? So leave that. Next we have Knights of Azure, which is 69% positive for a JRPG. And I think that means I can remove it from my wishlist. Like, if people are not liking it, there's definitely a lot more JRPGs out there. We can look at the review and just see what people are not liking about it. Does not work, crashes to desktop. Like, truth be told, I shouldn't have to work to fix your games right off the bat. That's true. Certainly true. If a game doesn't work, you probably should just immediately refund it and not jump through hoops to make it run. Let's see. It's not a bad game, it's just repetitive and nothing special there. There's so many better options for action RPGs, hack and slash, if you want to play it, wait for a price time, price things. Let's see. Tried on many computers, the game absolutely cannot launch. And see, the weird thing about this statement is if you're a person who builds computers, I build computers every now and then, you probably have a tendency to buy the same components from the same people. And so if there's an inherent flaw generation to generation from, say, I buy all my components mostly Gigabyte, so if you buy a bunch of Gigabyte motherboards and you put a Gigabyte video card in it, which makes sense theoretically, those should work together better than anything. And then maybe if there's a flaw with Gigabyte motherboards running certain games or Gigabyte video cards running certain games, that would follow you from the first computer you built to the next computer you built to the next one. Also, if you tend to favor Intel CPUs and NVIDIA graphics cards, yeah, that same flaw might follow you. Or, you know, it might just be user error too. If I'm installing the game wrong, or I install Windows in a weird way over and over again, that here we have one, buy it on Xbox instead of PC, control the PC version is suck. Apparently the controller doesn't work that well either. 16 to 50 hours commitment for this JRPG, and I don't see a reason to keep this on the wish list. We can release that. Koei Tecmo, as far as games that they have on Steam, they have quite a collection, and some may be good, but I imagine some are bad too. So that's another game that can be removed. Let's see, moving on. We have Knights of Azure 2, Bride of the Moon. This, on the other hand, is rated mostly positive, 77%, so that starts to make a little bit more sense. So 2017, February 7th, 2017 versus October 2017. So they put more effort into it, perhaps. Is that the case? I don't know. Also, if I would be able to get away with playing a game like this and not just getting demonetized left and right because of the lewd fashion style. Let's see. 14 to 52 hours. The grind for the basic true ending takes longer than playing through the entirety of the main story. Overall, the game has bland characters and an unfleshed out story. Let's see. Here's an odd one. The game is not as good as the first game. Let's see. Knights of Azure 2 is very rough and ill implemented. Now, clearly, if it was just mob rule, I would say keep Knights of Azure 2, put back Knights of Azure 1, play both games, and just commit to potentially 100 hours of gameplay. But I think I've found a vector here of a way for me to clean up my wish list of RPGs and JRPGs in particular by just being a little bit more nitpicky and saying, heck, this is not going to be the top of the quality games. Maybe after I've played the top 10 or top 20 JRPG games out there, I could come back and play Knights of Azure. It's not like a game leaving my wish list means I'll never buy it. Only games that make it to the ignored list mean that, and there's very few games like that. Let's see. Next we have a game called Night Sky, which looks like it's a puzzle game, but it's 92% positive, so I don't see a reason to remove it. Would kind of like to see how it actually plays, but I don't believe there's actually a video here. It looks like it's a physics game, sort of like Limbo, probably short, probably not. Well, 2 to 6 hours is a decent amount of time, although $5 is asking quite a bit. This is from Nicholas. Oh, it's from the developer of like The Binding of Isaac Rebirth and 1001 Spikes and Cave Story, all well-known niche games. So yeah, there's no way I can take Night Sky off the wishlist. I like The Binding of Isaac too much. And Castle in the Darkness probably is already on my wishlist, but I'll double check to make sure that it is. Next we have Nihilumbra. It says it's a puzzle or platformer. It's rated 89% positive. And see, I don't really want to have to question every game that is rated very positively. So, like, in all honesty, this does look a little questionable, and if I had more time and if there weren't just so many games on the wishlist right now, and we can at least for this year do a much more simplistic pass, I might look at this harder and decide to remove it, but I'm just going to leave it on the wishlist now. Next we have Nico Through the Dream, which is a puzzle platformer. It's mostly positive, 78%. So again, probably a game I should just leave on the wish list. It looks a little bit like it's in a asset flip style of game or lack of texture style of game. Let's watch this trailer now that something's actually loading. I'm gonna drink some more water. Maybe it would be a good time to pause and take a break yourself. What I'm seeing here is a lack of a gameplay mechanic. So either this is a trailer where you the programmer is just flying the camera around, or the entirety of the game is more of a floaty experience. I'm seeing like maybe a few little puzzle things. I kind of like this art style. Is that the character you play as, or is that just a statue? Okay, now this looks like gameplay. Walking around and solving puzzles. And see, now this looks like a game I want to play. It's a shame that it took them this long to get to that point. Well, yeah. Do I want to add this to the top of my list, though? I think I'm going to be a little generous to this and put this at the top of my wish list. Like, it looks weird, and I love weird, so let's put it there. It's probably not a super long game, 4 to 5 hours. That's not that long. Next we have Nicopole, Secret of the Immortals, a point-and-click adventure game that's mixed at 50%. I don't see a reason why this should stay on the wish list. In fact, I kind of question why it was on the wish list in the first place. Let's see. If we look at this developer, he made the Silent Age, which I don't even know if I own that. I played it, I think, on my phone. I need to remind myself to not play games on my cell phone, actually, come to think of it. I don't play too many, but there definitely have been 3 or 4 that have then been ported to PC. Yeah, I see no reason why this game should stay on the wish list. So it's going. As for the Silent Age, it's rated very positively. So it will stay unless, and we'll see if I actually own it or not. Alrighty. Next we have Nimble Quest, which is probably the 3rd game in a series of clones of Snake with a new idea. Instead of just having a longer Snake body, you have a new hero that has some form of attack or something. I believe Nimble Quest was again a game that I played originally on my cell phone, and this might be the first one that was made, and there's a couple other like clones of that, so it's rated very positively. There's not really a tag on Steam, I think, that would apply specifically to these types of games, though. A question certainly could be also made about do you really want to play this game on your cell phone, or do you want to play it on a PC? And I would say probably you want to play it on a cell phone. There might be some slight differences too. When I played Nimble Quest, see, this magnet gives you an automatic pickup for health and experience, so you don't automatically pick up things that are near you, which makes it kind of a bad experience. Also, you have to defeat a certain number of enemies to drop a new section of your body, and then you have to pick up the new section of your body. So if those two things are tweaked in the clones, it's very possible that the tweaked clone versions of this game actually play better. Moving forward though, we have Ninja Avenger Dragon Blade. This is 71% positive of 21 user reviews, so it's not a lot of our user reviews. Like, this could be a cell phone port of a game, this could just be a simplistic game. There is polish certainly here with the health bar and the events bar, although I'd say the health bar should be a lot further in the corner. Let's see what the reviews say and see if there's something that says it's really bad or really good. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some negative reviews. Let's see. This game is a ripoff of Samurai 2 Vengeance, a game made by Madfinger Games in 2011, available on Android and iOS. Stay clear from the shady developer. Don't support dishonest thievery. Excuse me, sorry. Clunky and not fun. There's no controller support. Mouse and keyboards are awkward where the mouse only pans the camera. There's no controller support, and the mouse and keyboards don't play well, according to that negative review. Let's see if this developer has made anything else that might bring it to some relevancy. If this really is just a rip-off game, maybe that's an issue, maybe it isn't. Let's see what this other game is. We don't really have a lot of developers on Steam that straight up rip off some other game developer where it gets called out as. The ideas get shared certainly, but it's so easy to change one aspect, some aspects, make it look a little bit different, putting the game more in the line of a clone than what we would call a ripoff. And video games have a long history of people cloning other people's ideas, and generally accusations of ripping off somebody is not something that happens. That being said, I don't think this game has relevancy with 21 user reviews, and if it's got bad controls, that's a good enough reason to take it off the wish list. Next we have Ninja Blade. Ninja Blade is a game that is almost 100% cutscenes. I played this on the Xbox 360, got it very cheaply, so this isn't a game that you'd really want to play with an expense for $10 even. Get it down to $3 or less. So it's a bunch of quick time events and kind of that's it. I don't know if it really has any relevancy, but I want to play it. Let's see, it freezes up this guy's computer when he shuts it down. Cinematics suck, bugs everywhere, and a blur everywhere. Don't buy this, even on sale, just don't. The basic gameplay is decent enough. You hack at zombies of some kind with 3 different swords, a basic katana, a huge, slow, powerful monstrosity that breaks shields in pairs with small, fast daggers. I didn't remember that there was a non-QTE section. There's actually not much to the basic combat. A lot of time you're hunting huge bosses and fighting them with hack and slash combats and QTEs. Never before have I seen so many QTEs in one place. In addition, you have some wall running, acrobacy, stunts, and collectible huntings. The problem is neither part is actually really fun or rewarding, and there's a lot that's just wrong. Half of the story animation dialogue looks blurry or out of focus. Let's see. This game is basically From Software's attempt at aping Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 while improving upon it, while they failed in the endeavor. I'm not gonna lie, it was an entertaining endeavor. Set to res to 1080p and you can play one time. Next time you start it, it just crashes. The 30 frames per second cap has to be disabled every time you start the game. Way too many QTs. Yeah, I don't know why I wanted to put myself through the hassle of playing Ninja Blade though. Like, in all honesty, I didn't finish it, I don't think, on Xbox either. And then when you think about From Software, that Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition is way better. There's very little of a historical relevancy to say, hey, let's play Ninja Blade and show it off for 30 minutes as a spotlight before we play Dark Souls Prepare to Die. There's no reason to do that. You just play Dark Souls 1, and you probably give Dark Souls 1 a 30-minute spotlight and then move over to Dark Souls 2 to give it a 30-minute spotlight to then move over to Dark Souls 3. And Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is hopefully going to play way different than Ninja Blade does. So yeah, get rid of Ninja Blade. And this game needs to be on the follow list because it's not out yet. It's also a little questionable whether this game is that long. It could be pretty short. Next we have Ninja Pizza Girl. We're not moving very fast. I said this was going to be a shorter experience and it really isn't. Ninja Pizza Girl is a platformer, runner, speedrun style game. It's rated very positively, 88% of 70 user reviews. It's good enough to keep it on the wish list. I'm not sure it has the anything else you can say about it. No, it's just first game from this developer from 2015. Maybe they'll make another game, and that would make more sense to cover something like this. Moving on, we have Ninja Striker from 2018. I can just put this on the follow list. We'll come back at the end of 2019 and see how that is. Put that in the wrong column though, so move that to the right column. Moving on, we have Ninja Clash of Carrots, which again is a game I can just put on the follow list. A ninja rabbit in a beat 'em up adventure game. Again, just put that on the follow list, and we'll see next year if it gets more reviews. Moving on, we have Neo Complete Edition. I'm surprised it's mixed reviews, 69% versus 76%. This is a Koei Tecmo game. I wouldn't be surprised if it runs poorly on PC, or if it's just didn't get some kind of DLC or element on it. I think that there was some censorship in maybe this version, that the Japanese version was uncensored, and this was slightly censored in like one cutscene. Not really enough to justify people negatively reviewing it. Let's see. Unoptimized games run smooth at 60 frames per second most of the time, but due to a bug no one knows what the trigger is, the game suddenly runs in slow motion, like 40 to 50% slower, and it gets unplayable. I ran into a similar bug with the Lego games. Instead of fixing it to make a second game. Let's see. Horrible loot system, horrible map design, almost no enemy variable, no memorable bosses. Could have been a good game, but the storyline is severely lacking and combat is tediously difficult. Excellent combat, but with the same enemies with insanely high HP, at least for the first 20 hours, killing them becomes quite boring, and similar level design doesn't help. I believe there's a whole system in it where you have to use certain weapons on certain enemies, but look at this, 42 hours to 99 hours to play this game. I think I can take Neo off the wishlist. It did have relevancy when it first came out, but it kind of quickly got forgotten. And Koei Tecmo, let's see. When they say a second Neo game, it's not that, it's just they moved on to another game of a completely different style, I guess. I think there's also a potential chance that like one of these Chinese games that aren't as well budgeted, that's what Neo was supposed to be, is a Chinese game designed to only be sold in China, and then it got some more polish on it and became a international game without having really enough budget for that. Dead or Alive 6 is also from this developer, this publisher, but then also you have to remember that different offices could be working on different games. Let's see. I don't believe that there's no other game, there's no Neo 2. I doubt that there ever would be. If the overall average was higher than 76, I would potentially keep this on the wish list, but I think I can remove it easily enough. Next we have a game called Night Team 4, a military hacking simulation game. Looks cool, so I don't want to remove that. Also, it's already past my threshold of 25 user reviews, so I don't want to remove it and move it to the follow list. It's from the developers of the Black Watchman series, which maybe I would play that, maybe I wouldn't. I guess there was no Night Team 1, 2, or 3, and although if this is an early access game, which it is, I can put it on the follow list. I need to be a little bit more careful about that. I don't want early access games on the wish list. Although I am probably gonna figure out how to move a lot of those down. Next we have Nitro Plus Blasters Heroines Infinite Duel. This is rated very positive 2D fighting game. Probably not a game that I'd actually spend a lot of time on if I was going to get into fighting games. I guess SNK Tag Team Frenzy would be probably a better game in this style to play, where it's just all female characters fighting each other. But also this is not tagged with like nudity or sexual content, so the costumes are all you're gonna get there. $29.99. It's been as low as $8.99. These niche games probably aren't ever gonna get really cheap. So I don't have a real reason to remove this from the wish list, but it's really, really low priority. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever play it. Maybe I would get this and play it for 30 minutes, then show off SNK Tag Team Frenzy, which is basically the same idea of girl characters fighting each other, but it's in 3D, so there would be a slight comparison. And yeah, this developer hasn't put anything else out on Steam. And this is a PC port of a console game, which we'll see more and more of that. Let's see, next we have a game called No Thing, and it's a minimalistic surreal action game. Well, this looks like a weirdo game, and for that reason, and the reason that it's 88% positive, I'm gonna leave that on the wish list. Next we have No Time to Explain Remastered. This is a tiny build game that's 83% positive. I'm not 100% sold that I want to play this action adventure platformer, but I'll leave it on the wish list again. I'm trying to be pretty generous here, but I do want to make sure I only have the remastered version and not the original version. Let's see, next we have an RPG called Null the Mortal Fate S1 through 7, which says it's an adventure indie RPG anime game, but to me it looks almost like a RPG maker game, although this is actually quite a lot of polish on that. There's not a lot of polish here. Let's see. It's a charismatic adventure game now available worldwide on Steam in English, with seasons 1 through 7 available in one package. I'm not 100% sold on this. Let's see. I don't know if this is a story-based experience or if this is an RPG-based experience. It doesn't seem like you're fighting anybody, and that trailer really, as I was jumping around, let's see, but it's rated very positively, so people like it. It's also from the Game Magazine, which is Angels of Death is an RPG Maker game that got turned into an anime. And so maybe this got turned into an anime at some point, or will get turned into it. Seems like there is several things here. Also, you have to buy Season 8 for another $2.99. Let's see. Vodka Game Magazine as a developer. What else have they made? Luna Nights, that's overwhelmingly positive. And Angels of Death, they're just very positive. And do they have any upcoming releases? No. What's this other developer? No, nothing. By the way, that developer had BAKA, which is Japanese for idiot. Baka. Let's see. Well, moving on, I guess we'll just leave all of that. And we'll add Toho Luna Nights as a Metroidvania style game. Actually, this looks pretty interesting. Metroidvania action game. Angels of Death, on the other hand, they made an anime on it and it's got a lot more coverage than that, but I'm not sure this is really worth playing. It's a horror RPG Maker game. I've kind of sworn off playing RPG Makers, but maybe I'll try it. But then if I commit to playing this, I'm almost committing to then watching the anime, which I'd probably enjoy more. This is a new game, so I can just put this in the follow list. So we'll put that there. So we're definitely making progress here. This is a game that's not out yet, so I put that on the follow list. There will be at least 20 games starting with delivery and removed from the wish list. Let's see. We have No Ito Love 2 The Evolution, which is some kind of beat 'em up game. Looks like it's an older game. I think I just added this to the wish list, so I don't think I'd take it off. But yeah, I just recently added this for some reason, so I'm not going to take it off. Let's see, now we have Non-Guns, which is a roguelike. Show me some screenshots that actually want to load. Come on. Nothing wants to load right now. Well, this game is 84% positive, finally. And it has a slightly unique looking art style. Yeah. I guess this stays on the wish list then. Next we have Northgard, which is a city builder resource management game. 84% positive. I'll leave it on the wish list, but there's a good chance that a city builder wouldn't get left, wouldn't actually get purchased. This one actually doesn't look too bad because the camera's zoomed in and it seems like you are doing a more controlled style of gameplay, whereas a lot of simulation, resource management, city builder games get incredibly crazy and incredibly complicated. But man, it has been a long time and it's getting rather uncomfortable to stay sitting in this chair. Next we have Nosferatu, well, The Wrath of Malachi. which is a 2003 game from... Is this a relevant company? Or could I remove this game even though it's very positive? Honestly, I don't think I want to play it. I'm looking at this developer, publisher. Let's see. I tried to cover this game Normality and it was just way too old. I don't think I've ever seen this one, Little Devil. The vast majority of these games, though, don't look interesting. They look like they're mediocre. I think I also covered this game Gunmetal. And honestly, I think I may have gotten both of those games for free. Somehow. Yeah, this doesn't look like it's a relevant game. And it doesn't look interesting, and it doesn't look good. So even though it's very highly rated, it's gonna get removed. As for Little Devil, this looks like it's a isometric old school retro adventure game. I'm much more interested in playing this than I am Nosferatu. I'm gonna add this to the wish list. And then as for this game, this is a brand new game. So I'll put this on the follow list. Looks interesting in the animation style at least. Next we have Not Dying Today, which is a action zombies game of some sort. Let's see how it actually plays. A beat 'em up game fighting zombies. Not a terrible thought. 79% positive. Now I'm not gonna just look at this and say, well, this developer has only made one game. It's also 99 cents right now, so not a terrible discount, but it's been cheaper. And this publisher, Forever Entertainment. Apparently, I've never seen this publisher before. Never heard of this Prodigy Tactics series. Upcoming game. Shadow over Isolation. Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of games here that don't look too bad. And there's like 58 here. So in an effort to save time, I think I'll probably hold off and look at a lot of these games the second time and add some of them, because yeah, there's a collection of games here. Maybe they're not great. I'm seeing some of them as mixed reviews. Some of them though as pretty good reviews. The publisher publishing a lot of varied games. So I'm just gonna put this in the middle here to remind myself that I need to go through this again. Moving forward, Prodigy Tactics, that was already mixed. It looks good. Shame it's mixed. I don't really, I'm not gonna add to the wish list if it's mixed reviewed though. This game's not out yet. This is again mixed. Maybe this developer's kind of bad at making games. See, next we have a game called Not the Robots, which is an isometric game of some sort. Is it a laser grid or a stealth game? It says stealth. Need to see a video of the gameplay. Skip ahead a little bit. Oh, okay. So you absorb furniture, and wow, I've never seen a laser avoidance game where you duck down under the lasers. So procedurally generated stealth, playing sort of Pac-Man, but also hiding from people. So as you're sucking in more elements, you're removing places where you can hide. Well, this is rated very positively, so I'll leave this on the wish list. Next we have a game called Not Tonight, which is a game about kind of an anti-Brexit game. You're playing as a bouncer and you're racial profiling people, I think is the game. It's a political statement game. I didn't know political had a tag, actually. But it's rated very positively, so I'll leave it on the wish list. And we're probably close to being done if we're at Nancat Lost in Space, which is good, because this has gone on longer than I thought. Definitely a question about whether Nancat is relevant, but it doesn't look terrible as a game. If we could get it down to $1, that'd make more sense. Also, probably still wouldn't buy it because there's so many other better games on my wish list. And I was right. That was the end of the letter N. And because there's Nancy Drew games and Need for Speed games, I guess were the two series we ran into, the list was longer than it seemed. But then we just also took a lot of time to go through everything. So yeah, this was a longer experience than I believe it really should have been. And I suspect when we get to the O's, there will be very few O's as far as games starting with the letter O. Maybe with very, very few O games. I have not thought of what I would do if I ran into a letter and there was like only 5 games, but I'll definitely, I might run into that problem. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this recording. I end all my recordings the same way. I ask you to like this video, share it with your friends, comment, and watch every second of my videos because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. Part of the reason that I'm showing this whole video is I'm asking people to support my channel by friending me on Steam and gifting me a game, either off my wish list or just a game you'd like to see me cover. Or if you don't want to make a decision, you can also gift cards. If you don't want to support me that way, you can also support me just through standard Patreon. All the information is down below. That's going to be it for this recording, so thank you for watching. Have a good evening.